Yeah.
Please note that this meeting will be audio recorded. Should we be required to operate the building, would you please leave the room by the door to the fire escape staircase? Please hold both handrails in case the stairs are wet or slippery. If anyone is unable to use the stairs, will they please allow others to exit the room before they go to the fire escape door, where they can then be given assistance. Our assembly point will be in the public car park at the side of the civic street. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by the council staff. Thank you. Now, on to the agenda. Apologies for absence. Councillor Mr Mason. He's being substituted today by Councillor Mountain. No other apologies? Non-members attending, Councillor Simon Smith. Thank you. And that's that. We then come to the minutes of the meeting held on 6th of January. Councillor Steptoe has requested a change to the minutes. The wording we had was, and I'll now read this: the portfolio holder would encourage members to approach him if they have any ideas for usage of particular assets that may have been overlooked, so the potential can be explored further. He felt that wasn't how he expressed it. His wording was the portfolio holder would encourage members to approach him if there is any council asset that they believe there is a better use for.
I agree with that.
Okay, sorry, Councillor.
I'd like to know why my apologies are not on there, because I did give them for absence.
Shall we go and add those?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that agreed that we make that change?
Agree.
That's agreed. Do I now sign these as they are?
Yeah.
And then we make the adjustment later? Item 4, to receive declarations of interest. Councillor Mrs. Smith.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask that because I use many of the different things within the district, like Clements Hall and other places, do I have to declare an interest, or is this a different thing altogether?
No, that you don't have to declare an interest, because that's something that any
Okay,
or anyone else
I'm
would
just
use.
covering myself.
Yes, fine, thank you. So no declaration of interest. So we now move on to item 5, medium-term financial strategy 2015 to 2020. You will have received 2 papers for this. I just want to make sure everyone's very clear about what we're doing tonight. We will be looking at the recommendation on page 5.1, which is paragraph 4, 4.1 recommendation, and I'll now read that out. We're not going to decide it now, but this is what we are doing. And that is it is proposed that, subject to comments from members, the committee resolves to note the contents of the MTFS and recommend to the portfolio holder for finance any changes to the budget process for 2016-17 onwards. In the paperwork, we've also received the paper which will go to Council, which is item 5.1, and that's the recommendations on the back of that. And what we are deciding tonight, they are the recommendations which currently go to full Council to decide. So we are just deciding the recommendation on 4.1 on item 5. But both documents are relevant for our discussions tonight. Okay. We'll start with Councillor Mountain, and then we'll move round as people indicate.
Thank you, Chairman. Just refer members to page 5.23. I've got a few questions relating to the windmill.
That's 5.2 is on the paper copy.
if you're looking at it on a non-paper copy, it's page 13.
That's on the budget book.
And this is the windmill.
The windmill. In the got that?
Got that.
Give you a look tomorrow morning for that. On that.
Where am I looking?
On this.
That's in here somewhere.
Yeah, it's the budget book appendix.
It's not paged.
Sorry,
Well,
what
Matt's-
page is it on?
It's page 23 on top notes.
But it's top notes.
It's on page 23 on my top notes anyway.
Yes.
So it does correspond.
That's at home.
Yeah.
23. Right.
I can work. I'd like to work down it and go through the questions that I have. Starting at the premises related, the mill tower special items. It goes from 1,300 up to 9,300, down to 300, down to 500. I wonder if what these special items are. How can that be broken down a little bit more so that figure, specifically the 9,300, can be understood exactly what that contains. That's the first question. The second question, supplies and services. There's a big leap in the under licensing from 500 to 1,700. Again, it was just a question as to what that relates to. The depreciation, what exactly is that based on? And aren't the maintenance costs making up for that? That makes sense. Trying to work out what depreciation is based on. Support services, they just seem extremely high, and I wondered what what the methodology was for. Is it based on square footage? How are support services? How are they allocated? What's the methodology behind that? And if it's possible to have a further breakdown of fees and charges, so to help us understand exactly what the fee incoming money is. Is it just weddings? What is it?
Right, well, I'll start from the bottom and I'll take the ones that I can answer and then see if Matt can pick up the ones that I can't. The income is weddings income, so it's just from weddings, and we're forecast, the department are expecting to increase income by advertising and publicising weddings. Support services, that is all the internal recharges. On support services into the windmill, it will be mainly staff costs because you don't have any direct salary costs charged to this cost centre. Depreciation is based on the capital value, the last valuation of the windmill, and depreciated over, I would expect for the windmill it's 30 years. In public sector accounts, we have to show depreciation in the cost centre, but unlike the private sector, it then gets reversed out before it hits council tax. So depreciation does not have an impact on council tax, but it's so that you're showing a more realistic cost of carrying your assets. Repairs and maintenance, special items, I don't think we're going to be able to give you the breakdown this evening, so we'll have to come back on that one. And licensing, I don't know if you know the reason why that one's...
My understanding that the licensing of the windmill is £500 a year, but I think they're paying up front in 15-16 for 3 years worth plus inflation costs, but I will confirm that.
So
Let's go back to the I understand the internal recharging for the support services, but what's the methodology? What's it worked out on?
It will depend because there will be recharges from asset management, so that will be based on officer time. There'll be, what are the recharges going to the windmill?
Management from the leisure manager.
The leisure manager, so that will be a percentage of his time based on whatever recording he does.
So Chairman, is it correct then to suggest that the windmill is making a loss of £161,403?
It's difficult to say because, I mean, support services, we spend a fair amount of time trying to do them accurately, but you could turn it into a whole industry to get, 100% accuracy on your support services. So there is some estimating that goes into that, and it does depend when you ask, say, the leisure manager, how much time do you spend on the windmill? It will depend. His recollection might be that in the previous week he was up the windmill all the time, whereas if he'd actually done time recording every day for a year, you might get a different percentage. But no, I mean, that is an indication of, what the windmill's costing. The other thing to consider is that where it is officer time, and it's 10% of an officer time, if you lose the service, you may not necessarily lose the cost of salary cost, because you're just losing bits of people. And in a small authority, it's quite difficult to bring all those bits together to make a head that you can lose. If that makes sense.
I thought £100,000 is at least one head.
Yeah, but there's
It's mates.
there's
time.
lots of other. I mean, we can let you have the breakdown of the support services.
I think that would be useful.
Yeah.
Is anyone else? Questions? Sorry, Councillor Black.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Chairman. I understand, I think you're right, that calculating support services is an industry or a science. But I mean, looking for the windmill in 2013-14, it comes to 146,000. If you compare that a few pages on the Parks and Open Space, the support services figures about twice that. I'd be surprised if that was a fair ratio. I would have thought Parks and Open Spaces would take up a lot more time on support services than the windmill would, rather than just twice as much.
Well, Parks and Open Spaces has employee costs directly charged to the cost centre. So there's some of the costs are coming, they're shown as direct costs. The windmill doesn't carry a lot of direct costs. They're just related to premises and the running costs.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but again, looking here at the salaries cost for Parks and Open Spaces is about 355,000. So we're now getting to a point where even if you add in the employee costs of Parks and Open Spaces together with the support services, that's about 4 times the figure for the windmill. Okay. Intuitively, I just think it still should be higher than that. It does seem to me that the windmill is getting charged a lot. So I look forward to seeing more information on it.
So, Councillor Smith.
I think it's a very difficult area. It's never going to be an exact science, and as you can almost straight away pick up when you try and attribute these costs to all the different services, you can pick holes. But I do think it is right that some of it is done rather than just having a big pot of money that provides an amount of services. You need to try have some go at attributing it to the particular items. And of course, as Councillor Mountain said, it looks like it's a very expensive resource, but that's just simply matched against the income from weddings. The big intangible is the number of people through the door, the value that you place on those, the value of the asset to the town. And it could be that if you wanted to spend time on essentially a bureaucratic equation, you could come out that the windmill is exceptionally good value for money, and those sort of staff costs are a drop in the ocean. But it's nothing. They're calculations that do need to be done in some form. You can't just pay them lip service, but nevertheless, they're calculations that don't give much benefit to anyone, other than just the ability to examine on a periodic basis.
Sorry, Councillor Mountain.
Can I just ask that, is the support services, is the equation the same throughout all support services?
No. So HR will be based on number of staff. Finance, we do it on the number of invoices paid, number of invoices raised, on the number of staff on the payroll, the breakdown of senior officers' time. That all then gets weighted by salaries to come up with a percentage. Asset management is done on floor space and the asset management programme. What else have we got? Legal is done on time recording. Computer services is done on time recording, number of PCs and licences value.
Reception is phone calls.
Reception is done on number of phone calls. Premises is on square foot occupied. Information and support services is
Posts.
time recording, number of post items.
Scanning.
So what we do is look at a apportioned overhead, and they come at the end of the budget book and decide the most appropriate bases for how you're going to apportion that overhead, and then decide on a realistic way of getting the data to then calculate the recharge. But there'll be a different method depending on the costs. Grounds maintenance is done on the schedule of rates.
Charges, yeah.
For the contract, the grounds maintenance contract.
Yeah, okay.
But if you gave me a full-time accountant, I'd be quite happy, and it'd be a lovely job. I'd stay and actually do that job. Spend the whole year doing recharges.
Make everyone do a time sheet.
Yes.
Councillor Mountain has a couple of questions at least.
Yeah, I was, the next one was related, well, it's a question, I couldn't see anything about pet cemetery in here. Does it come under 5.26 memorial trees and benches, or does it come under Cherry Orchard Park? I mean, it wasn't listed down. Couldn't see that.
The pet cemetery income, there hasn't been any income yet. There's one pet to be buried within the next couple of weeks, which will be the first one. So at the time of putting these estimates together, it was unknown as to how much income would be generated. So when we come to do revised estimates in August, September of this year, then an income stream budget line will be put in for that.
Am I correct? That would be £60.
It is £60 per burial, yes.
And what amount has been spent on it?
It's capital expenditure. There's no revenue expenditure, and it's incorporated within the Cherry Orchard Country Park capital budget.
Sorry, Councillor Mrs. Glynn.
Yes, thank you very much. The pet cemetery is something that is a new one, and I personally realise that in all possibility, when somebody has a pet put in there, or their ashes, whatever it is, they will want to have a tree or something put there in memory of them, and in the hope that they will then buy the tree through the district council, and if it's possible it will come through our woodlands officer, and so that's going to give us more income, not just to bury the animal, but to actually to get the income. But you can't show that on this because it's a new thing, and I personally have been very much involved in this, and I feel that we are going to get more people interested in going to Cherry Orchard, across people from outside, and it's going to be, as time goes on, it's going to be a bigger attraction to bring people into Rochford. And that's why I'm looking at it. You can't put any costing on it yet because it's only just beginning. And if you've been over there, you'll see where the area is and where the trees have been. Trees have been planted over there now, outlining the First World War pathway, and that's in that same area. So it's something else we as an authority are doing to encourage people to come and visit us. So that is all for us getting more money in. Thank you.
Okay, that's answered.
Also, yeah, I was just wondering what the funding was for the redevelopment work that you said has got.
We'll let you know because it was.
It's only
last
digging
year,
a hole.
yeah.
It's only digging a hole and filling it in afterwards.
What, did you dig the hole?
No, the officer, the Woodlands officer, I'll dig the hole if you like. Yeah, I dig a hole for you as well as me.
There's a cost involved.
Well, it's only just for the bloke's house work, isn't it?
Do it through the chair.
Sorry, darling, I do apologise.
I think I understand both questions. Well, I understand your question, I understand Councillor Finn's answer as well. Are you talking about capital cost or are you talking about revenue cost?
Well, just the cost, yeah, I suppose it's capital, isn't it?
I think the capital cost was a couple of years ago, probably,
Yeah.
it was agreed, wasn't it? I can't remember which.
I spoke to the assistant director for that area today, and he estimated 20,000, but that's not an accurate figure, and we can provide an accurate
Right.
capital cost for it.
Chairman,
Yeah, one more.
with the cost, the capital cost that was gone, but the idea was that would generate a revenue stream, and it's failed. Or,
Well, it's only just been completed,
no.
It's only starting.
So it's just been completed.
and the first
First one
one
next
is in
week.
the diary, and
Yeah.
pending more to come.
I think,
It's just been done.
if I may, Chairman,
It's snowing.
the term capital cost, I think, suggests something like a business arrangement. I think capital investment is perhaps a slightly easier term because it is an investment in the future. It is an investment in the quality of life. It is fairly intangible in terms of how people value it. It's something that will take quite a considerable number of years in terms of, you know, a graveyard of any kind. I very much doubt their money-making operations. However, the investment and the worth of them is immeasurable. So, just in terms of that level of understanding, it was never intended as a specific business plan, as my understanding is at this moment in time.
Thank you. I'm the council and I think cost rather than investment cost. So, forgive me. I know Councillor Nancy's got some more questions. Does anyone else have any questions at this point? Councillor Middleton. Sorry, I did forget at the beginning of the meeting just to mention that Councillor Burton did say he will be late because of the trains. So my apologies for not giving his apologies being late. Sorry,
Mr.
Councillor
Chairman,
Middleton.
Tony's sorting out his next one. Can I ask my question that I wanted to ask?
Yes, you may ask your question.
My question was the money that it cost. What was it I was going to ask?
You are going to ask about the legal costs in
Oh
the
yes,
court case.
in the legal costs that we've had to pay to do with the going to court for leaving out winning the case, that we had to employ solicitors or barristers to it, and as I understand it, it's something like about 50,000 it's going to cost the residents of the district through it. Can I be assured that although I know it doesn't come through with an insurance claim or anything, is it going to make much difference to how we waste that money? I say waste that instead of using it elsewhere. Can that be found in this year's budget without increasing it?
Yeah,
Please.
I'd put money away in a reserve in anticipation of the costs, and the amount put away will cover our costs.
And may I just come back then, please,
Yes,
Mr.
you may.
Chairman? The second thing is, as and when, if they go to appeal, will we then again have to find monies for that as well?
Yes, if they went to appeal, we have a planning appeals reserve.
Thank you, that's all I wanted to ask. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mrs. Spencer, you wanted a question as well, didn't you?
Have I noticed on going through the number of times that car allowances come up? What are the car allowances for? Car, petrol, or what?
It's there's a car allowance for essential car users. It'll be reducing because the new appointments on the senior management team won't be getting car allowances, and it's mileage claims, but the council doesn't provide cars.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going
Councillor
to,
Middleton.
if I could follow up from Councillor Glynn's comment regarding the court cost, would that explain why on page 5.30, the planning appeals has been earmarked for £20,000?
Yes.
Is that,
It's yeah, we talked to the planning manager about and legal about the number of outstanding appeals or those that we think are going to come through, and we put money in the budget. If it's not spent at the end of the year, we'll make a decision about whether to put that into a reserve to build up funds if we've got any large appeals that we think might come through.
So to be clear on that one, then that's Oz, is that on the basis they think planning appeals will increase, that it's gone up to 20,000?
No, it's just
Or
that when we
possibly.
closed the accounts for 13-14, we decided that there was enough at that point in the reserve not to put any money away. So that's why it's only showing 3,500 expenditure.
So we're now returning to
Yeah, put in.
20,000.
Yeah,
You're effectively saying.
yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Burton has sent some questions through, but I'll wait till he arrives. And if he doesn't arrive, we'll ask them then, depending on trains. I did ask a few questions myself, which I did forewarn everyone about. If I'll go through those quickly now. And hunt for the page numbers for everybody at the same time. They're duplicated. They're different pages for whichever document you've got. The first one was in parks and open spaces, which should be around 5 points.
Page 25 on,
5.25.
on
Top notes.
In top notes, really.
top notes.
5.25.
Yes,
Page 25 on top notes.
Something's wrong with Thales, really. Obviously. Within there we have.
5.24.
You can find it, it's so small. Under contracted services, the bottom line for that is virtually at the bottom. We have contract contingency,
Yeah.
and it's gone from sort of 2013-14. It was an actual of 8,317, and it's gone to 50,000. When I see the word contingency, I'm normally a bit wary because it means to me that it's just there just in case we might need it for something. Is there a rationale for that, or any evidence of why we need that much?
Yeah, again, I've spoken to the Assistant Director for this area today, and £50,000 was set aside in case the new grounds maintenance contract failed. And the reason for that contingency was because the grounds maintenance contract came in a lot lower than was expected. They wanted to keep that there for that very reason, in case of failure.
Would that be normal behaviour with a new contract?
I think with the history of grounds maintenance in the past that we've had, then it was prudent.
Councillor Black?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it was prudent. I was on the panel that looked at the new contract, and yes, I think it was prudent. Definitely. Bearing in mind what happened previously.
Yeah.
Is there a time limit on which we will be providing for it? I mean, is there a certain way into the contract where we'll feel confident that we won't need the contingency, or is that not being thought of yet?
We have considered it. It's a short it was a short contract, wasn't it? It's for 4 years with extensions, and then the risk might increase near the end of the contract. So at this point in time, the advice would be to leave it in.
So at the end of the contract, potentially would have built up a reserve of 200, or reserves would have increased by £200,000.
If it doesn't get used, yeah,
It's
go
not
back
used.
into general fund. Yeah,
Thank you.
Self-financing if it's not used the first year.
yeah. Well, yeah, roll it over.
Cherry Orchard Park is on the same page.
Yes, did you have a question?
Yeah,
While we're on that page.
So on that page, Cherry Orchard Country Park, the figures go from 9,819 up to 4,3,500, up to 4,6,100.
That's under supplies and services.
It's linked to the Cherry Orchard grant that's then on the next page. So there's expenditure that's grant funded.
Yeah.
So you've got £59,000 of grant that's coming in,
Yeah.
and we have to show the income and the expenditure separately.
Yeah, that's fine.
5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. 5.25. Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question on that?
Yeah, of course.
Is that that's calculated for 1 year? That amount of money, getting a grant. Does that then come back to the grants being available from different organisations and so on?
Yeah, they've had grant money for specific things, and then they've got grants that are going to last, I think, up to 10 years from the Forestry Commission. So we're expecting 59,000 in this year, 37,500 next year, but we're not expecting any large amounts, 16, 17 going onwards.
Okay, thank you very much.
So if I could just come back to the contingency,
Yeah.
50,000, it does come back out as income again. Is
Um,
that so? It's effectively taken against. It's put it as a contingency, as a liability we may have, but then once the liability is not realised, there's not going to be a liability. We're taking its income against that, as against parks and open spaces, to presumably reduce the loss or deficit
yeah.
on that account.
Yeah, we're
So
not
it's a way of
expecting to
bringing
spend it
reserves.
this year, yeah.
So that's how it'll be treated each
Yes.
year, as an income.
Mm.
So it'll be written back each year.
If it's not used, yes.
So the 200,000.
Mm.
Okay. The next one was about the pest control coming in. And that can be seen on item 5.1 as well, because it's obviously something which came out the away day.
Yeah.
Really, I just need to know what. There was an emergency fund for it in previous years. Try to find it, I think, on page 5.2 something. It's on there. I just wondered what the evidence there was that we needed it and where the value of 40,000 had come from.
Right.
I believe the usage in previous years had been, I think it went up to about 3,000 last year or the year before.
We had
Can you give us
700.
a page number, please?
Yeah, sorry, I'll stop looking for it.
So it's 5.2.
Something.
Oh, right.
And the pest control
Right.
treatment.
So it's we spent £733 in 13-14. We spent £4,499 in 12-13. 11-12 was the
It's on page 5.37. 37, I've got.
yeah. The 40,000 is a best estimate of demand for a pest control service that deals with rats and mice. There was some debate at the away day about extending it to different types of insects, but the consensus was that that would just open the authority up to too much cost. And Simon will explain the rationale for including it.
In terms of the evidence, it's not just a demand-led idea. That there's a degree of political intent behind this one. You know, we can't say anything else. Dealing with pests is something of a crisis situation, and when we've had crisis situations before, albeit somewhat more significant than rats or mice, we do understand that people look to the council to deliver some sort of service, and if the council's suggestion is, and I've been a bit flippant here, to go and buy sandbags at B&Q, or to go and get the Yellow Pages and look up a pest control service and see if they're open on a Sunday afternoon or whatever it happens to be. I think that the council might open itself up to a certain amount of ridicule. So we've seen that there is a perceived need, and it's a service that the public would appreciate us providing. Now, when you start up an idea like this essentially for free, you could expose yourself to untold expenditure. The advice that we've had from officers is that we should look specifically at things that are connected with public health as opposed to public nuisance. And it seems that wasps is the line in the sand, because wasps are public nuisance as opposed to public health. And there's debate about that. However, rats, mice, other vermin, we are looking at getting together a formal plan for doing that. We're looking at whether we're having token charges, completely free, or a level of charges. The scheme is not fully developed at this stage, but an allowance needs to be made for the scheme to come. And of course, the success of the scheme is partly going to be influenced by the amount it's advertised. Whether we start off with a slow burn with word of mouth, whether we go out to everyone and just tell them through RDM or whatever avenue that it's there. We've not fully decided yet. We're going to work closely with officers so that we can enter this new arrangement in a sensible way. That's sort of our initial rationale behind it.
Councillor Mountain.
Thank you. On that subject, how is the 40,000 being allocated? Where's that being spent? And was there ever an option to perhaps link up with Castle Point and for a shared service across the...
Well, there's a variety of options that could be considered, and as I say, that they're not all there yet. But I think our scheme will be very much for Rochford, rather than trying to piggyback on the back of someone else's. It could be that we use our own staff to deal with this. It could be that we simply use a contractor to come in and deliver the service. The detail is not fully evolved yet. But all those things and possibly more, I'm sure will be considered.
Okay. Do we know the cost to the council in the last year that we did operate a similar service? I think the service we used to operate may have included wasps, for instance.
11-12, it was 21,000, but I think the scheme changed partway through the year. That was when we were moving away from providing a comprehensive service.
Yes, where I live, I've had 2 or 3 times that I've have them in to see to the wasps where I live, and to find that they're in the roof, and to be honest, it's big, huge like that, and they come in, they give 3 or 4 up, and the whole lot is finished and done with under 5 minutes, and then they go, and they don't come back in that particular area. But that costs something like £50–60 to do that. And I quite honestly, as far as I'm concerned, I was pleased to pay it to get rid of them. But I think if we're going to look that people can apply to have this vermin taken away, I'm talking about the wasps. In my opinion, it should be just that, as we do now, you phone into the council and they give you somebody's number, 2 or 3 numbers, and you go and do it yourself. Because once that nest has gone, they've gone for good. And I know that because I've had them in various parts of my ground. And I think it's something that, in my opinion, people should be able to find the money themselves to do it. Because it's a one-off thing and it's finished with. It's not like the rats and mice, it's a different thing altogether.
I think they're not doing wasps in this scheme.
Not wasps, it's wasps, not bees. I'm talking about wasps.
That's what I said, I don't think they're doing wasps in this scheme. Sorry, Councillor.
Just sort of on a point of caution, and if we were doing a free service for wasps, I'm sure we would be absolutely inundated. Now, I'm absolutely not an ecologist, but I suspect if we were to essentially eradicate wasps from Rochford District, I mean, people say they're not a useful insect of any kind, but that's going to be affecting something somewhere along the line, and we have to approach something like that with a very cautious eye, I think.
So, Councillor Mountain.
I just want to come back to it was covered, but I was still trying to find the page at the time. What's the 400? it's under pest treatment, so the actual 2013-14 is 400, and then the original 2,000. Is that what was spent on it this year? Was
400 is the 13-14 spend.
that's the spend?
Yeah.
So we're going
Because we no longer provide a free service.
Yeah.
And the proposal is to provide a free
Yeah.
service.
So I can just say, I think we do provide I can't remember the word.
We do it. We have a
emergency
hardship. So if
hardship
someone's on low
service, yes.
income, they can approach the council,
I've got a
and the
hardship.
council may.
But it's cost us £400.
And
£333.
£333. It's those two lines.
I mean, that's just-
Right, but just questioning what Councillor Smith said about there being a sort of perceived demand for the service, but is that...
Well, because people know we don't provide service, would they ring up the council to ask for the service? Whereas people who are, say, on receiving benefits may be directed to the service that we currently provide for those on low income.
And do we know how many complaints we've received about not providing a free service?
We haven't received any complaints in the last year. And I don't know how many complaints or comments we received when we first stopped providing it.
Still looking for right, Councillor Fair.
Yeah, a couple of points. First of all, Councillor Smith talked about how people will contact the council, and quite often they look for information via the council website. And actually, if you just type in that at the moment to the council website, you get a page that is quite informative in the sense that it says, first of all, the council no longer provides a pest control service, but it does cover some other information there. So I think, because some things are hard to search for on the council website, that is going to be an easy one, so that's going to work quite well. I would support bringing the service back. We always used to have it. I think as Councillor Smith said, there's a public health function there, but it's like vaccination. You want everybody to be vaccinated to keep down disease. You want everybody to get rid of rats in their house to keep down rats and disease elsewhere. So it's something I would support, and it's not a massively expensive service either.
Okay, no one else in
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Councillor Wilson.
I'm sorry, but we used to have a rat catcher, and he lived at Rawrath, and he had the most wonderful allotment, and he was the one character that everybody knew in Rochford. And I think if you're going to look to something like that and take somebody on, it's going to cost a lot of money, a vehicle and everything else. And I think the way it is nowadays, and the way you can eradicate the vermin, is a much better way and cheaper in the long run for people to do it themselves.
Yes. Thank you. I'm still desperately trying to find a page number. Moving forward, we've done some of the other questions. Could I have some information around the air quality review? I think we're all aware that there is a air quality thing.
Management area.
For Rain High Street. Is the
Okay.
increase to 12,000 in relation to that?
The
I'm trying to find the page number. Oh, it's on page. Sorry. I'm hunting every other page, but the page is on 5.37. So it goes up sort of to £12,000 every year. Is that what we should normally spend on this, but we perhaps haven't sort of the last year?
Yeah, I can give you the breakdown of what the £12,000 is earmarked for. £9,000 of it is for a continuous automatic analyser, which is actually the one in Rayleigh. There's a £1,500 contract with Chelmsford Borough Council for an annual progress report, which includes maintenance of the website. And then the actual diffusion tubes that they use in the air monitoring itself cost in the region of £500 to £700 a year to replace.
So is the £9,000 something we would spend every year, or is that because of the air quality management problem in Rayleigh?
No, I think that is something that well, that's what they're planning on spending. I don't know if we've spent that in the past, but that is for the £12,000 budget going forward.
Okay. Don't know what problem with checking their air quality. there's a few ups and downs on salaries, and I know Councillor Burton, who hopefully will be here soon, had some issues or some questions around changes in salaries. For instance, I noticed Hackney carriage licensing, which I was trying to find the page for. So we actually use page 5.41. I just wonder why there's such a big drop in salaries in that department.
Yes, we had a bit of it because we start the estimates in August, and then we continue reviewing and revising them. And one of the challenges this year has been the redesign, where we didn't know until sort of 19th of January who might be appointed into posts. So what we did, just because those costs impact on support service recharges, we pulled out all the senior management team costs into one cost centre. So the transportation manager went over it, is in the senior management cost centre. So her costs came out of Hackney Carriage. So there was just a bit of up and down on some of the salary budgets.
So that probably explains
And that's why senior
Burton's question, which for people who ever asked, senior management team, why is there such a substantial increase? That's because you've put the senior management
Everyone
team
is
one
now, yes. So the 13-14 and 14-15 costs were just heads of service costs, and the reduction in the 14-15 revised is because we've been carrying 2 vacancies over most of last year, and then the increase to 900,000 is because all the assistant directors and the director posts are now in this cost centre.
Yeah.
But the actual salary cost for the whole of the senior management team is about 1.6 million. So there is about an £800,000 saving on salary costs as a result of the redesign.
For people who aren't aware, that's page 5.14, the senior management team.
And the PAs have gone in there as well, because they used to sit in individual cost centres.
Yeah. So, and that's the reason why there's such a big increase in salaries.
Yes.
In that one. My one slide, and I'll go back to my next previous lot. I'm desperately hunting for a page I can no longer find. I don't know.
Highways,
It's highways, was it?
yes. Don't ask me a page number because I'm working on completely different. You asked about the 35,000.
Yeah.
This was a
5.47.
5.47.
12.47, I found it. Page 5.47. For everybody, is under supplies and services, we have street/footpath lighting, and in 2015-16 we've got the estimate goes up to 35,000 just for that 1 year.
Yes. This is discussed in the covering report. So this was a budget bid from Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
So it's arising out of her working group on park night lighting.
That's what I didn't realise it was that. So that's
Yes.
great.
Yes. So it's a one-off provision to allow the working group to do research, publicity, and just do some useful work around the whole park night lighting issue.
So the advisory group have got a budget of
30,000. Yes.
Because the normal budget is 5.
Yeah, normally it's 5,000, which is because there are some street lights that are our responsibility. Very, very few.
Yes. Have we any detail of what that 30,000 would be used for beyond what you've just said?
She,
It seems a bit unclear.
I think she did a verbal, didn't she, at the no, it was. I mean, I have got more information because Councillor McPherson went into some detail at the away day, but all I included was the detailed research and analysis. But it's not to pay for turning lights on because that will be an ongoing liability.
On page 34 of item 5.1, you'll see it mentioned in paragraph 12.7, parking street lighting. So I didn't realise it related to that. And it says, in order to support the work of the group, including detailed research and analysis, one-off budget of £30,000 will be 2015-16. I'm a bit surprised by the number. Is anyone else surprised by the number, or is it just me? It seems quite a lot. To turn half the lights on for a year for that.
I think Councillor McPherson indicated that most of that money wouldn't be used in effect. That's the impression I get.
Sure.
Sorry, Councillor Mrs.
Yeah, I seem to be the only one that's answering back, I'm sorry. But I would prefer to see that we have that money in there, that if we need to use it, it's there, rather than take it down to half of it, and then find at some particular moment we suddenly haven't got that money available. Surely good husbandry is to have something there in the case of an emergency, and I would think that that is for that. That's how I see it.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Milton.
What sort of emergency would you
I've no
anticipate
idea.
with an advisory group?
But there could be an emergency from it, that they've got to do something urgently. I'm not on it, so I wouldn't know. But what I'm saying is, it's all very well to sit here and say, well, we shouldn't do this and we shouldn't do that. But we've got to be an authority that covers that something goes wrong. We have the reserve there to do it without fiddling around, because we've got it there.
You wanted to come back, and then Councillor
Yes.
Mr. Gray.
Yeah. It was just to say that this is a new budget, so it's a recommendation to full council. So it's not yet, a definite budget, and you'll have an opportunity at council next week to debate the merits of whether it goes, it stays in the budget book or not.
Right.
Councillor.
Just going to that, we clearly haven't got the specifics of that information for you tonight.
Yeah.
We can ask Councillor McPherson to feed that to you, unless it's something that you feel would be more appropriate to just examine in front of council. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Dray wanted to come in.
Thanks.
Yeah, Councillor.
Presumably that cost would include some sort of officer time perhaps as well.
Yes, Councillor McPherson's original email was very, very brief, and she provided a lot more information at the away day, but it did include officers' time, promotion of the park night lighting group, a website, public consultation and research and analysis. Because I think one of the issues is we don't know how many lights and where the lights are.
So, I'm getting lost. I'll let Councillor Matter go. Councillor Butcher and Councillor Blank. Yes.
Yeah, I think in addition to that, it was to make residents aware of who was responsible for what lights and where, so that there was no confusion, and to be quite assured that residents were able to get the correct information, who to go to, and how easy it was to get those sorted out, because there's been quite a number of problems with lights that have been looked at, that it's been part night lighting, but in fact it's been lights that are not working, and if the residents were assured that and knew exactly where to go to, that would make things easier. And it is a one-off. It's where we've got the flood prevention of 25,000 each year. This is just a one-off amount, which I think we do need to be looking at that.
Councillor Black.
Yeah, I'm on the little panel that Councillor McPherson set up, and we'd like to make some progress on this. I'm not clear what the 35,000 would be used for. Although I can see a situation where officer time is spent on this subject, in terms of, we were talking about earlier, apportioning officer time. And I think it could come into that, or if a panel is getting the council to carry out safety audits, or trying to get the county to carry out safety audits, or maybe arranging our own independent safety audits on certain lights to see if they should be on or off. If we're going to be challenging the county's decision on particular lights and particular roads, we may need to spend some officer time to tackle that, and that I think is the best rationale for having the money there.
Well, I was going to agree with Councillor Butcher and Councillor Black there. I'm on the advisory panel as well, so we could probably dig deep on Thursday and find out some of the other stuff.
I personally would like bit more information for the full council. As per our recommendation, I think perhaps that one, it might make it a lot clearer for all members
Yes.
if we had a bit of details about, and I think Councillor Black's mentioned safety orders, which makes perfect sense to me. Once you hear they're not going to be cheap, so
Yes.
I can understand that entirely then
Yeah.
as a budget, which I didn't understand before, and I think that would be very useful for members if they had details of that available at the full council meeting. Thank you. Councillor Mountain.
Sorry, there was one more that was discussed earlier. It's on page 5.43 and it relates to graffiti removal.
Oh, we haven't.
The figure is £916. The budget is £5,500. The
We've already done that.
we did
What,
it.
graffiti?
We haven't done that since 7:30.
No.
We did it in the pre-meeting.
I haven't heard it.
I think we had a discussion before the meeting about it, and one of the things that came up is why aren't we spending 5,500? Why have we only spent 916?
It will depend on what gets reported to the council. So if graffiti for some reason isn't being reported to the council, isn't being spotted by the officers that are out and about, then the expenditure might be lower in a particular year.
What could that expenditure be spent on?
It's purely
What
graffiti
graffiti?
removal.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Purely graffiti removal on council buildings or public buildings where if it's been reported in to the department.
And the definition of that would be Rochester District Council buildings, or would it be any council buildings? Would it include bus stops or things like that?
We will try and go after the landowner, but if the landowner refuses to remove the graffiti, and for whatever reason, if it's offensive, council officers decide that the council needs to remove it, then we'll remove it and then try and recover the costs from the landowner. But that's not always possible if it's a derelict building. And I know in the past we've struggled with the railways getting money back off the railways.
Yeah.
As Councillor Burton isn't here, I'll now go through some of the queries he's raised. The first one is on the Innovation Fund. What was it used for, and why is it no more?
Right. This was a one-off
I'm trying to
budget
find the page.
agreed as part of the 14-15 budget, where we took out a number of vacancies and put the money from those vacancies into a pot of money, 75,000.
5011.
It was the chief executive was keen to have an innovation fund that would provide money to pump prime projects that would generate income or have demonstrable benefits to the council. They haven't used all the money this year, so we've reduced it to 60,000, and anything that's not spent in this year will go into a reserve and be used if any projects that come up next year. But it's a
I think there were
one-off.
a couple of projects, weren't there?
Yes. Yes, there was, I think, Visit Essex and an open air cinema, and there was another one, but I can't remember which one what it was.
Tourism one.
There was a tour, something linked to tourism.
I think the open air cinema is, I've seen quite a lot about that recently, so I assume that's the same.
Yeah, but there was a portfolio holder, 2 portfolio holder reports on the details of the project.
Senior management team, so she's done that. That's to be done. Conducting elections, which should be near the front.
5.19.
519. The question that Councillor had was, it's not really a question, I think it's just a clarification that he says assumes higher next year due to boundary changes and the subsequent elections, and presumably, I would say probably
It's the all-out elections in 2016.
I assume this year I assume is general election high.
Yes.
Next year is all out elections, and then the year after is county council elections. So I assume that's why and then 2017-18 presumably there's no elections.
No district council elections.
Yeah. So that's presumably the changes there. I don't even know where the next one is. Emergency planning, health and safety, 245% increase in first aid courses,
5.21.
5.21.
The increase from 6,900, is it the increase from 6,900 to 23,900
Yes,
revised
yeah.
is being created? The 23,900 isn't just for first aid courses, whereas the 6,900 was. The 23,900 includes the cost of 6 emergency on-call officers, whereas their salaries were situated wherever their staff costs were represented.
Yeah.
Instead of having them spread out, we've pulled them into one budget.
So part of their salaries into one budget.
That's the total emergency
That is
on-call
it.
salary, £3,000 each.
Oh right, the extra they're paid,
Yeah.
those staff are paid.
Yeah.
Right, okay. That makes sense. Next one, I think we probably understand this one, but just need clarification. Local land charges, it's the very next page, 5.22. There are simply no salaries there.
Where we moved them to? Legal, I think.
We have this debate around the budget book doesn't reflect the structure of the council.
Yes.
So the land charges lady used to be in legal services. Then a few years ago, land charges moved into customer services. And we had debates about whether the salaries should show under land charges. And I won that debate at that point in time. But I've obviously lost the argument going forward.
Right.
And it's in, I think it's in customer
services.
services. And so now it's part of the recharge, the support services.
The
Although the
thinking,
support services are going down.
yeah, I mean the thinking behind it is that for someone's salary to sit under the cost centre, they should be doing 50% or more of their work on that cost centre, and for the land charge officer, less than 50% of her work is on land charges. So she sits under where majority of that is, and that's customer services.
Right. Windmill, which I think we discussed, I think why running costs separate, which I don't quite understand. But so it's 5.2. Right. Okay. 2.3. Okay. This one next to that one. That's the question, but I don't quite understand it.
Probably because there's 2 lines that say windmill running costs.
Oh yeah, I do understand it then.
I don't know what the extra line £500 is for. I'll have to find out for you.
Okay. Just wondering as a matter of coincidence whether it's the licensing, which is £500. Next one is leisure premises, which I've got a sort of question on. Well, it's got repairs and maintenance, seems low. So we have premises, the first line, page 5.24. We have repairs and maintenance for each property.
That repairs and maintenance lines for each of those properties is purely for the car parks of those properties. We don't take up the repairs and maintenance for the buildings themselves.
Okay. I don't think I've got any questions on that. Could I have clarification around what buildings we as a council now pay NNDR on, national non-domestic rates on? Because I understand we've taken something out, but I was still quite surprised by the quite large figure we're still paying for rates, given that presumably it's going to consist of the Great Wakefield Sports Centre and
Those,
the day centres, presumably,
yeah.
which I would understand are the only ones not under Fusion's control. I was surprised it was that high still. For clarification,
Yeah.
Fusion now
Yeah.
pay national non-domestic rates for the buildings they control.
Yeah, we're still bearing 20% of
Oh,
the
we bear
cost, but
20%,
we'll clarify that.
Councillor Burton's next question was the one we've done on street lighting as well, so that's the 30,000 increase, which is for the advisory board, so that's not a problem. The next one was on the waste vehicles for 15-16, which is going to be under, I'll be further on, I imagine. For the environment or something. So that's the purchase of the new vehicles, I imagine, what he's talking about.
They won't be in the revenue budget, they'll be part of the capital programme.
He seems to have done, oh no, yeah, he's done it in Appendix 4, I missed that. Yeah. So he's just asking why there's, it's just in 1 year and not in the rest. I'll get the page in a minute.
It's part of the extension of the recycling contract. The current contract see to provide the vehicles as part of the contract price. The extension was negotiated on the basis that the council can access cheaper financing, so we're financing the cost of the vehicles for the 7-year extension. So there's about, I think, a £300,000 revenue saving from this capital investment. The plan is, if the council can dispose of some assets, is to fund it through internal borrowing. So as general fund balances are going up, there's enough cash flow for the council to fund this internally rather than going externally.
For members, that's page 5.116 in Appendix 4, that is the capital programme. It's been explained quite well. It's where we're basically 2015-16 we're buying the vehicles from internal funding.
Yes.
So they're not being run by the waste company. They're being run by the waste company, but they're being run by the district council.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see the revenue saving on page 5.44 in the contract.
Yeah, so once you take into account inflation, the savings about 300.
Yes. Okay, thank you. They're all the questions I've got here. They're all the questions which have been passed to me to ask. If I just look around the table, if anyone's got any questions, I'll start with Councillor C and just look round to see if anyone catches my eye. But no one does, so that is... Sorry, Councillor Mrs. Clinton.
Yes, we've sat here for over an hour going through all of this. Am I right in thinking there will be a written reply to all these questions, and when we have the full council next week, these questions won't be asked again because they will, I take it, they will be answered in a written form. So
Yes.
none of these questions will come up. Am I right in that, Mr.
These
Chairman?
will be within our minutes as questions. Where we are asking now for information to be brought forward to the full council, such as I would like us to ask, can we have the clarification around the £30,000 for the advisory group in a bit more detail so all members understand what it's for, because there are members there who haven't heard it as well, remember, that it could be for safety audits, things like that. I think it gives clarity. So yes, those hopefully would be within it, but potentially members who aren't members of the review committee might still ask the same questions we've asked, yes, if they haven't read the minutes, got their answers. Sorry, Councillor Smith.
I've advised Councillor McPherson already that the information's going to be required.
All right.
She said, all right then.
Yeah.
There was just one small change that happened to the figures from that you presented with the away day, which you probably wouldn't have noticed. I think Councillor Black was aware of it. It's on page 91 in the top notes, 122, and it's just fees and charges with regard to cemeteries. And there was there's charges for burials, but there was a charge for stillborn and under 1 month.
Yes.
And then looking at it, it just didn't feel right. It was only one occurrence last year, fortunately, but we removed that, and it's just a small thing, but I think it's important, and no one wants to take credit for it. I think it's just to make people aware of it.
I mean, that's page 5.91 in the paper, so really no charge. Sorry, Councillor Blair.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a very good idea, and I applaud the sentiment behind it. I mean, it is interesting because you get the previous uses. As you say, only one last year, and I see under 12 years there were no charges, and I'm wondering. So there were no occurrences last year of children under 12. I'm just wondering if we should look at that at some stage as well, in the same way.
It's not. I mean, there's nothing. Sorry, Chairman. Nothing stopping you proposing that next week.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it a full council thing, you know.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's something I don't know what members feel about it, but
I think I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. In my introduction, I can just mention it as an amendment. When I introduced the report.
I don't know the mechanism for that.
Yeah.
Making an amendment.
I'll talk to Albert and work out a way of
Yes,
doing it.
yes. If that needs to go back to the leadership, I think maybe, but
No.
I think it would be.
Okay, Councillor Mrs. Lee.
Yeah, on that subject, the one or two younger children that I've known of in the last few years have unfortunately passed away. Invariably, they have been gone into a district cemetery. They've gone into the church cemeteries like Ashington and so on. So it doesn't show, and it goes through a completely different section. And bearing in mind that all I'm going to say is I fully agree that I think children under 12 they've got to pay the expenses for the funeral and everything else, and I think we should take it out of our domain, that it's free, the cemetery part of the district council, and I think that should really come out and people realise that that cost is taken away.
Thank you. Right, that's that. The recommendation is that we, subject to the comments from members today, the committee resolves to note the contents of the TFS and recommends portfolio, I'm reading too quickly, portfolio holder for finance any changes to the budget process for 2016-17. Have we got any, moving on to the process now, has anyone got any views about the process of it? This is talking about the away days and how they work and the timing of them. I think there's some problem around timing given the fact that we often don't know what the government figures are going to be until now-ish.
Day before Christmas.
Yes, until Christmas Eve, I think. Has anyone got any comments, or do they think the process worked better this year than the previous year?
Mr. Chairman, I personally would like to say this one, having it back at Saxon Hall, was so much better for everyone, not only for parking and finding the place and the food and the way that we were treated there. I thought it was excellent. I only have one comment to make, that instead of, as the year before, we took a number out of a pot and we sat at that table, this time people sat with their friends and neighbours and so on. My only comment is I think the idea that we sit with whoever is on that table with your number, I think it's much better than staying in the same group. But again, I would like to congratulate Yvonne, because I thought she did an extremely good presentation, and I thought that when each table had the two questionnaires to do and so on, it was very, very informative. And I do know a member that sat next to me that isn't here tonight, no names, no patrol. He was very impressed by the paperwork that he took away with him. So congratulations, Yvonne, and
Thank
all
you.
your team. It was
Thank you.
excellent.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would agree with Councillor Glynn on those comments regards to the away day, particularly with regards to the numbering. So you pick a number and you sit on a table with that number. And it would stop everybody sitting with their friends, which was very noticeable.
Nick notices he hasn't got friends as well. All I'll say, I was a little bit uncomfortable about it being private and confidential. I think I preferred it when perhaps Chatham House rules might have applied, where you could talk to people about what may have been discussed without attributing anything. That's my only comment really around it. I don't know if anyone else has got any other
Well, you
comments.
weren't there.
I know, that's why I didn't attend. Councillor Black.
Yeah, I mean, I always have mixed views about the away days. I think if the council's run properly, we shouldn't need them. We should be able to do it in the council chamber, and save money and do it in a more rigorous basis. I've got to agree that the Office of Information was very good, as it always is. I'm not convinced that when we have these, we always have this kind of little session where we have a little task to do and talk amongst ourselves, and that wasn't the highlight of the day. Let's put it like that. And I really doubt whether these sessions will work. That part of those little exercises are worthwhile, to be honest. And I'd also agree. I'd rather, if we're going to have this, have it on Chatham House rules rather than P&C. And I don't think it matters who you sit with.
Councillor Seekers and then Councillor.
The whole point of Chatham House rules is that it stays within those four walls.
No,
It
sir.
enables some free thinking, sort of out of the envelope, basically,
Yes.
so that ideas can be discussed. And then you can act as, if you wish, as devil's advocate or vice versa, to actually draw out means of, in our case, usually trying to save money and still provide as good or better services at the end of it all.
So
Sometimes that will be a rather difficult or involve rather difficult concepts, which members might be deterred from actually floating, kite flying if you like, but to see what the general feeling is on a particular idea.
I'll just let Councillor Black come back.
Yeah, because I think there is some disagreement over what Chatham House rules mean, or misunderstanding. Chatham House rules mean that you can repeat anything that's said within those four walls, but you can't say who said it. That's what Chatham House rules are.
That's not the way it's ever operated in the city, put it that way.
That's the way it operates in political circles, as far as I'm aware. So we leave the argument about
It just shows how wrong the city is, doesn't it?
I agree with Councillor Black on that. Councillor Butcher.
Yes, I mean, I agree to a certain extent, because I think in a situation like that, to have a certain amount of confidentiality amongst the group allows you to, you've got to trust each other for a start, but it allows you to test out different ideas. That sometimes I'm the sort of person that I actually verbalise a lot of my ideas, and halfway through I'm thinking, oh, actually I don't agree with what I've started to say now anyway. And so it gives the opportunity to people that are a bit like myself to do that. But as for this year's away, I mean, I've always felt in the past that it's been fairly successful. I compare it with how other councils set their budgets, and we were able to get some ideas and throw some ideas around. We have the figures, we can have a chat, and we can sort out some ideas prior to it going forward to the full council. But I have to say, and I may be the only one here who thinks that, I thought this last one was almost a waste of my time. And the exercise, I actually didn't see the purpose of it. Maybe it was just me not understanding what was behind it, but I couldn't grasp what the purpose of that exercise was, and I didn't get as much out of this last away day as I have done in the past. Now, I did actually return home quite disappointed with it.
Okay. Mixed reception. Councillor Mountain.
I just want to make a comment. I didn't attend this away day for a few reasons. One of the reasons, I think there is a danger when the papers are served as private and confidential, and on a political level, when there is a strong majority in one party, it tends to have the appearance of a group meeting. Is there a need to go to the expense of hiring out of place and laying on a fine fare of food when sandwiches could be, members could bring their own sandwiches. You're talking about going to an event where you're discussing budgetary funding cuts maybe and so on. I think there's something a bit strange about laying on a food for members. The main point is that if it's private confidential, then it is like a group meeting, potentially. It's a political group meeting.
Sorry, I have no experience in group meetings. I take the point. I do agree about the private confidential versus Chatham House rules, and I know there has been disagreement between people around what Chatham House rules mean. But I think whether or not we agree what they mean, I think the rules that as described by Councillor Black would be more suitable personally, in that there's no attribution, if that's a word, to who says what within the way date. Thank you. I think those notes are there. I'm just going to move on to the final thing in this then, which is for next year, which is about the public consultation. Because in our papers we do get figures showing percentages of around the public consultation, but the figures who respond are only ever a few hundred. And I just don't know if anyone's got any views if we're using social media. I understand there is a social media strategy now, because the budget here is for 7,500. I think that's mentioned in the papers as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that social media strategy would include better budgetary consultation. There are some websites. There are a couple of websites. St Albans has a actual very good interactive website where people can take part in a public consultation on the budget, and they get much better responses than we do. So I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts about that. Councillor, Mrs.
Yeah, I'm coming back on that. Over the years, we've always had public consultations, whether it's parish, district, county, governmentally. And it's up to the person and the people that get the papers, if they want to, and I'm not talking about this, although I do use it now, as some of you already know, with a lot of spelling mistakes, but I'm getting there. But there is still an awful lot of people out there that don't use this, that don't listen to whatever it is, Twitter or whatever it is. I don't even know what it means. But at the end of the day, the public consultation, it goes to every house through Rochford Matters. And if people feel they want to fill it in, they'll fill it in. We can't make anybody fill it in. And the only thing, even I would like to see, it was compulsory voting, but you can't have it. But what I am saying, it is entirely up to the individual. And those people that have answered it and put it back, that might only be 0.1% of the people. But at least those people have come back. The rest of them are quite happy with what they're doing and everything else. So I'm sorry, but public consultation is up to the public themselves when they do it. And when we have a Cody Day with the local a group of people coming in, and at the end of that, not every one of those 50 people that come actually do write anything at all. That they've come, they've listened, and they've read it. And at the end of the day, it's purely a personal thing if you want to answer it or not. And I think that just to say, well, of course, only 300 people answered, well, that's their prerogative. They must think it's all right if they haven't answered it. Sorry, but in public, that's the other side of it.
Any other comments? No?
I agree with Heather. Because if people want to answer, they will answer.
So this committee has decided that the consultation is fine, and we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for coming. We've got a couple of more things to go through, but you'll feel free to stay or to leave as you wish.
Thank you.
The recommendations will be as ready.
Somebody got this.
I'll give everyone a minute or two. We'll be moving on to key decisions. And that will get this down next week. Thank you. Actually, we haven't got keys.
Those three sitting up.
So we're not going on to item 6. There isn't one.
Do what?
There are no key decisions being taken at the moment, so there is no key decision document.
Oh, well, goodness for that. Can't find them.
So we're now going on to item 7, work plan. Is everyone okay with that at the moment? Everyone's got that? We've done what we've done. Today was council budget. I think everything we've done is sorted out. So we've got next month we have car parking income. So we're going to assess how much difference the increase in tariffs has made, if it's been as was forecast or it's been above or below. Yeah. And then we're also going to be doing homelessness. I know Paul Bowser's emailed around all the various classes if they have any ideas around questions they would like to put. It'll be quite useful. We want to, at the moment on our plan is we're asking Rochford Housing Association, but we'd also like to ask Genesis. Now obviously we've got a relationship with Rochford Housing Association and the director there, Emma Keegan, has indicated she's happy to attend, but we've got no power to make people attend. But we also wanted Genesis to attend as they're also quite large within the area, and obviously we would like them to have an indication of the sort of questions they're going to be asked so they can see the relevance of it to them, to encourage them to attend. So,
Could I ask the question
Yes.
then? You're talking about homelessness, right?
yes,
Well, homelessness, the housing associations are there to provide homes for people. But the homelessness part of it is not their job. Their job is to run the units, as I see it, for people to live in, right? So where does the homelessness come to that part of it? Bearing in mind that presumably if somebody is already in a housing association a property and they want to change over, that comes through them. It doesn't come through us at all, because they can go back and change as many times as they want to. And bearing in mind I had a holiday last year where 3 people were on the coach and they were all in Rochford Housing and they were all telling me, not knowing who I was, which was a change, that it's lovely because we didn't like this one and we've gone somewhere else and we've gone somewhere else, and they'd swapped around over a period of time. So the homelessness part, who are we going to actually speak to about that? Because it's not the housing, it's how we find the homelessness and that part of it. And I think that part, we should have somebody here that is from that area.
we are as well, such as HARP maybe, or other organisations. However, that's still in discussions who's going to represent that area. With regard to housing associations, they do have a duty to provide temporary accommodation. Certainly Rochford Housing does provide temporary accommodation to the district council needs for homelessness, but then there's questions around whether that's enough or not enough, or if it's in the right place.
I know perhaps what I'm saying
So if
to...
you're homeless, you might need temporary accommodation before you get your permanent accommodation.
Yeah.
So that's why it's relevant to housing associations.
I know I'm coming back and I'm sorry about it, but it's something I feel very strongly about, in the sense that there's so many people that have got homelessness and they come into the district, they'll live in the district and they need to go somewhere, and immediately the first thing they're told, well, go and find somewhere private and do it that way. So I really feel that we ought to speak to people and say, okay, fair enough, it's a homeless family, they haven't paid their rent and everything else, and they've been thrown out. And I've got quite a number of people, and I expect all of them have, that where people can't manage their money and their affairs, and they're out. But on that, making themselves homeless because they can't cope with their lives, and I put it like that. And that's where I'd like to see somebody, we speak to people on that level. Not that with the housing association are going to take them in, but where else and how do they come about to actually do it?
I think.
I'm sorry, but it's something that I feel very strongly
I understand
about.
the question you're trying to ask, to be honest. At the moment, perhaps We'll talk about it afterwards and I can get a clearer idea. Councillor, Mrs. Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure what it is you're trying to say, but with the homelessness, there's a number of reasons why people become homeless in the district. You know, people being released from hospitals. On a personal front, I work in Rochford Hospital with the adolescent unit. There's a lot of youngsters there that can't go back home.
Yeah.
But they can't be released from the hospital until they've got somewhere to stay. And we have a duty of care because, you know, they're not all our residents, but a lot of them are our residents. You know, certain situations with domestic violence, families splitting up. So there are a number of reasons why people do become homeless. And you know, they are our residents, and we have a duty of care for them to try and see, you know, if we can house them. I mean, there's nothing worse than somebody being well enough to be released from hospital, but can't be released from hospital because they've got nowhere to go, because that's not going to help their mental health or their physical health at all.
So the questions could be around where do we have accommodation for them? Why don't we have accommodation? So that's the,
Yes.
Yeah.
and that could be a housing association related, but it could be something they could do in partnership with the district council. Because Councillor McPherson will be here along with Steve Neville as well.
He won't.
Sorry, he will be.
We're trying to get Steve.
I'm sure he will be here for that. And then there'll be two others. We're not sure yet who the other two are. I think I understand what you mean around it, Councillor Dean, but I'm happy to talk to you outside.
Well, all I'm going to say is what Leslie said. That is part of what I'm trying to get at, because that is the most important part. And the other side of all this, you've got the youngsters, but you've got elderly people. Okay, I'm an old girl. I apologise that I'm that old, but there we are. But where I'm coming from, there are a lot of people, older people, that go into hospital, and their hospital, as soon as you walk your chalks out the door of the hospital, it's nothing to do with the hospital anymore. And that's and it is homelessness as well there. So I hope that when we actually have this discussion, that they are taken jointly, old, young and middle-aged as well.
Yes, I think
Thank you.
generally the idea is to try and get an idea of what the problem is, if there is a problem, if there isn't a problem, how we as a district deal with the problem, if we do understand the problem. And I think it's very helpful that we've got Councillor Mrs. Butcher on, because I think you're much more aware than a lot of us of what happens. And I think with Councillor McPherson as the portfolio holder is very helpful as well, to get a really good idea that we as a council understand it, and that if we can help Councillor McPherson within a portfolio to sort it out, good. But also to see what other outside bodies, if that agrees with what we as a council think happens, or if they're actually linking up very well, or if there are problems with it around there. So that is quite wide ranging, I think, but I think it's really important we try and get some questions across. So, thank you. Sorry.
What happens with people that don't really show up on the radar, where they're living with friends or
Sofa surfing.
yes. There must be quite a number of those people.
Yeah.
There is.
And how do they receive help? I mean, if they don't go out and ask for it, they can remain in that situation for months or years, can't they?
Problem, I think, and that's a question. So if you have lots of questions like that, then email them to Paul.
Right.
And that's brilliant. That's the sort of thing we want. Lots of questions, so we can draw out the answers.
And I think that's one of the problems where a lot of our homeless are hidden, and particularly if we're talking about younger people. And say, when I was talking about mental health and hospitals, I wasn't just talking about young people.
I know that.
Certainly with younger people with the sofa surfing, they will go from one friend to another, to one relative to another. And there are lots like that. And some of it starts at a very young age. You know, I will see youngsters of 14 that are not, don't have a permanent place of living. And we're responsible, you know, parents are responsible, of course they are, but if parents are giving up that responsibility, then we have a responsibility and a duty to ensure that those people are cared for. And I think a lot of the homeless in that age group are hidden, and we need to be aware of that and be having things in place to support them.
Councillor Drake.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of clarification. We obviously have a duty of care, but we also have a statutory responsibility
Yes.
as well, do we not?
Yes, we do,
Yeah.
as councillors.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Councillor,
Just the other side of it, there's also
It does,
the
it
sort
look.
of temporarily homeless, where it be fire or flood or pestilence,
Yeah, very
who
good.
knows
Yeah.
what, but that is another source, and it can emerge very quickly and suddenly, both for the families or whatever, and for our officers to actually deal with. So.
okay, thank you. Very good.
One of my residents, they had a fire in their home, and they were, for a short period, they stayed with relations, and then an insurance company paid for their hotel accommodation, which went on for about 6 months. Are they a feature of homelessness, or do they register on the figures, or?
That's a question I don't know.
Right.
We're not here to discuss it, but I think it's a.
I would
if
think
you put
if
the
they're not
questions-
insured, then yes, they've got to go to the council.
I think if we haven't put the questions forward, then we can, maybe some of the questions may become one question, there might be two or three we make one. Okay,
If
sorry,
I may
finally.
just one of the things that does concern me about homelessness as well, and it's the domestic violence situations where, and it's often women and children fleeing a home. That is a really difficult situation for families, for women and their children, and sometimes they need to flee and they need to be put in a safe environment away from the district, but quite often it would be far better that they were housed within the same area.
Yeah.
Children can continue at the
Yeah.
same school with their friends.
Yeah.
That there's the support structure for the mother with her friends and everything. But to have to be put out of our district because that's the only accommodation, I think that is wrong.
Yeah.
And quite frequently, I think
And
you'll find
happens.
because usually it's the man who is the problem, and normally the man is the one with a tenancy agreement quite often, which means I think they're now trying to get around it in the Rochford housing, but I know there's a big problem around the fact that the man may have the agreement to occupy the building, therefore they can't transfer it to Warden, and it's a lot of difficulty around it. Sorry, I know it's massive, but that's a couple of days later, but start thinking about that and get questions to Paul, would be brilliant. Treasury management task finished, they're all done. Skip over that. Project teams, building control. Oh God, I forgot about that one. Yeah. Well, I know the one that's first topic's going to be for next year. Topics for next year, I think we've got potholes we haven't managed to do anything about so far.
Well, highway
Let's start
agencies
about
out there
potholes.
going along the roads.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Marking them all up.
Oh, marking them again, inspecting. They're very good at inspecting, I find, but very poor at bringing them in.
Actually,
So can we start having a think about items? We can't enforce them on next year, but it might be things which will come up this year or we think need to be expanded next year. And it's an idea for the next committee, post-May, that they might want to put on their programme. They're not bound by it, is my understanding. That's correct, isn't it? Project teams, building control. I'm sure we are going to try and arrange a meeting with Mr. Dave around this. That's been put off, but I'm not going to be put off too much longer. ICT contract and iPads is this Thursday, so hopefully that'll be the meeting which finalises that. Rochford District Matters.
Draft report is being circulated, comment at the current time. No one's come back to me, but I'm sure someone will eventually.
Sorry again, I didn't understand. Are you're talking about the
Project teams.
Rochford Matters?
Yes.
So what are you saying? Why are you having them in to find out what they get up to and what they don't get up to, or what?
That's had a number of meetings already, and it's now going to come back, report back to us. What was the scoping document? I can't remember now. It was around.
The popularity, young people read it, how they access it.
change of format, wasn't it, I believe, was discussed.
Yeah. So that was, it's been mentioned at previous meetings, but they haven't reported back to us yet, but that will be at the next
We
meeting.
have we have completed our discussions.
So that'll be at the next meeting. Sorry, IT contract's been done, it was the iPads and the party software, which is Thursday. That's right. We've now combined the two, because it seemed a bit pointless having them as separate ones. And that should report to possibly the next meeting.
I would think so.
Yeah. And that's it. According to my agenda. Meeting closed. Thank you very much, sorry.
Thank you.
Too bad. Not turned up.